I don't want to I know everyone's time is limited, so we'll just start with a couple of introductions, and if people come in late, they will. So welcome to PRSA-LA's Independent Practitioners Alliance Programming Session on Business Development. I'm Stacy Schwartz. I head up the IPA section, and I'm excited to bring our virtual programming session to everyone today. We are back, and we'll be having a couple more of them throughout the year, so keep a lookout for those. And I'm excited for today's topic. Just, as some background for IPA, we really try to provide, relevant, useful industry information for all PR professionals, not just those that are independents. And today's session is really special in that I think we'll get some insight on a topic that's relevant for all businesses, not just communications, PR, and marketing as well. So that said, one of the key aspects of a successful business is identifying and pursuing new appropriate business opportunities. As you all know, there are many ways to go about developing a business pipeline to grow your business, some more obvious than others. There are key considerations to take into account when looking at new business. There are different perspectives to take into account. There are tried and true tactics, just like with everything else. And then some common mistakes to avoid. So today we are lucky to be joined by 3 communications veterans and entrepreneurs who together have nearly 80 years of experience in running their own businesses that they're going to share with you. We have Jonathan Fitzgarrald, who's managing partner of Equinox Strategy Partners. We have Larry Kohn, who's president of Cruz Communications. And we have our very own PRSA board member, Claudia Santa Cruz, who is president of Santa Cruz Communications. So I will kick it over to our panelists just to give a little brief introduction about themselves. Jonathan, why don't you start us off?
I'd be happy to. Thanks, Stacy. Jonathan Fitzgarrald. I started Equinox Strategy Partners in January of 2015. Prior to that, I had been in-house at 3 major law firms as their chief business development officer for about 16 years. And so I have definitely been involved in the legal profession for a really long time. We also serve accountants, financial professionals, and business managers on the entertainment side, located here in Los Angeles with an office in New York City as well.
Thanks, Jonathan. Larry, why don't you go next and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Stacy. I've been coaching lawyers and other professionals for 43 years. My company is Kohn Communications. We've coached lawyers in over 1,000 law firms, and I've personally conducted over 34,000 one-on-one coaching sessions. And that's just me. We've got lots of people working for the company. So I look forward to this and hope we can give you some really good tips.
Thank you, Larry. Claudia, why don't you finish off and tell us a little about yourself?
Thanks, Stacy. My company, Santa Cruz Communications, is a Hispanic PR boutique agency. We basically specialize in organizations that seek to reach and engage with the U.S. Hispanic market. Launched in 2001, so it's been 22 years. Prior to that, I worked for 10 years in the corporate world, specifically at Univision and at Telemundo. And just very happy to be here.
Wonderful, thank you. And I wanted to let everyone know we will have some time for some Q&A at the end. So if you have a question, just go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll address them all at the end. So let's start off with, kind of some of the basics here. How does one start developing a new business pipeline? Are there some considerations to take into account? Jonathan, why don't we start with you? Just talk to us a little bit about kind of top level, how do you even go about starting a new business pipeline?
Yeah, so when I started, as I mentioned, in January of 2015, I had lots of liabilities that needed to be covered from day one. So I knew that I needed to start before my launch date to secure potential opportunities. And so when I was in-house at my different law firms, people outside of the firm would approach me from time to time saying, hey, do you have a side hustle? Do you do work for other organizations on the side? And at the time that I didn't, but I made a note of all of those individuals and organizations that had reached out to me over the years. And so in my preparation stage of getting ready to launch, I would have conversations with each of those. I returned to each of those individuals and I said, listen, if I was to go out on my own and start something, could we have a serious conversation about working together right out of the gate? And so I think part of the lesson to that, Stacy, is you got to dig your networking well before you're thirsty. And if you're in-house right now at an organization, or if you're out on your own, I think the strength of your network is essentially your calling card. And whether you need those individuals right now or not, staying in contact with them, reminding them the value that you provide, so that when you do need to flex that muscle, you're not starting from scratch.
I love it. Dig that well before you're thirsty. That's good advice.
Yep.
Claudia, what about you?
For myself, I basically, after 10 years, working for a company, I really wanted to launch my business. So the first thing that I focused on is making sure that I had a niche, making sure that I had something to provide that was different from other of my colleagues that were also launching, their own practices. So that's why I made sure to continue focusing on the US Hispanic market, because I thought that could give me a leg into other companies. The other thing was, like Jonathan, also identifying potential clients. I looked into my network. I had been working for 10 years. I had built a good reputation and a good network. And I reached out to all of those people to let them know I'm launching my own business. I'm available. Let's talk. And last, I also make sure that I had a presentation. I had a website that I immediately, wanted to put up. I wanted to make sure that people would be able to go somewhere to find out about my services. Having a PowerPoint presentation that I could immediately share, because that's the first thing they're going to ask you usually. And I think also just, making sure that there was a commitment, whether it's daily, whether it's weekly, to business development. It's making sure that I set aside some time always to focus on that as well.
I love it. Larry, what about you? What are some of the, kind of top advice you'd give to somebody to just start developing a new business pipeline?
Well, Jonathan and Claudia are so correct in terms of reaching out to your network. The key that I think is to have a good CRM, a client relationship management software program, so that you can capture the names of all of the people that you know. When we coach people, we often joke, make a list of all the people that you've met but can't remember. And people laugh at that, of course, because they can't remember them. So it's amazing how many people you meet and how easy it is for them to fall through the cracks if you don't capture them in a CRM. So there are many of them. There's one that we use and recommend often called Zoho, which is a single user, and they have a free version on a very limited kind of a program, but certainly good enough to begin with. But you don't want to just have your names in Outlook. You don't want to limit the contacts who's in Facebook or LinkedIn. You want to have a completely comprehensive CRM with the names of every single person that you either want to do business with, or that could refer business to you, or who could be a resource for you, so that you're not struggling with, remember, who was that person that I met 5 years ago? So that is fundamental. If you don't have a CRM, then you can't do email broadcasts effectively to your entire database. You can't really develop your target list effectively, because you forget names too easily. All of you meet more people than you know. If you're good at capturing names, that problem will go away.
I know we talked a little bit about, and obviously this is a professional organization. So Jonathan, I want to ask you, because I know you were really involved with professional organizations before you started to go out on your own. What role does that play in developing your business pipeline, and how did it help you, or how do you feel like, there was a balance between that and having to go out on your own versus maybe thinking like, well, I'm a member of a professional organization. I have all these people in my roster.
Yeah, so it was interesting. When I was in-house for so many years, as you mentioned, I was a member of a number of networking groups, and I would even get some of my colleagues in the legal profession who were marketing in-house at firms pull me to the side and say, why do you spend so much time marketing? The firm doesn't really require that of you. Like, essentially, what the hell are you doing? And obviously, they didn't know my greater plan of always wanting access to movers and shakers in town. But I think what happens, I think the fundamental element here is you've got to build trust with other professionals. They've got to know you if they're going to hire you or refer you work. And because professionals are not inexpensive, because for many clients, there's a lot at stake in hiring a consultant, nobody wants to sharpen their teeth on you. They want to know that you're a known entity. They want to know that you have a track record. I've now been out on my own. I'm in my 9th year, and some of the work that prospects put me through to fold myself into a pretzel to win over their business to this day shocks me. You can Google me, and I've spoken at hundreds of conferences. I've written hundreds of articles. There's videos out there that video content that I have procured over the years, and still prospective clients put you through the ringer, which is fine. I'm happy to be vetted. But the point is, all of these interactions with people, whether they can do something for you now or not, start some kind of a relationship bank for you. They're deposits in your relationship bank. And you just never know when one of them could hire you, when one of them could be a referral source, when one of them could act as like a recommendation or a testimonial. You never know how those professionals might be useful to you in the future. And you're not building relationships with them just for the sole purpose of using them. Hopefully you're authentic and genuine in your outreach, but you got to start that years in advance before I think you can really call in any chips.
Agree. And I love that you said, you really have to use that. So, what kind of tactics, are you all using that you have found successful in kind of warming those relationships once you have them? Now you've gone from an initial introduction, you've maybe built a little bit of trust, maybe once. So then how do you go to really warming up those contacts to a conversation about becoming a client? I know, Larry, you've talked also that CRM program, which is great, keeping everyone and keeping, notes on connections and interactions to maybe have that follow-up. So Larry, why don't I start with you on this? And, what are really some tactics and approach that you've used, again, from keeping, from moving one connection to something that you can actually transfer into a potential client conversation?
Sure. So the key to developing any relationship is a multiple of conversations. It takes too much time for you to communicate all of the value that you bring and all the reasons that you're trustworthy. It takes too much time to do that in one phone call or one meeting. You might get a lot across, but you're never going to really be able to communicate all that you bring to the table until you have several conversations with people. So the key is follow-up, and that means you need systems for follow-up. One way, of course, is a macro broadcasting follow-up where you have all these names in your CRM and you do a periodic drip or you do posts in social media and things like that. That's a broadcast. And then you have your one-on-one follow-up, which is the shorter list because you have limited amount of time of the people who you really want to spend your time with. Time is your most important asset. So choosing who you want to follow up with may be one of your most important skills. So learning how to target and then stay connected. And one of the best tips that I could give you, and I've been doing this for a long time. So if you're really excited about the idea of really building relationships, write this down. If you're having a conversation with somebody who seems to be worthy of your attention, always try to negotiate the next interaction before you leave the interaction that you're in. Because if you negotiate the next conversation, then you build in the fact that you're going to be talking again. If you don't build it in, then you hang up the phone or you leave the meeting saying, wow, that woman was really a good contact for me. I'm going to call her later. And although you've proclaimed it, you may not do it. And it's amazing how many good marketing opportunities fall through the cracks because all of the reasons for being too busy or not liking marketing or feeling like you're asking for business and feeling needy. So if you negotiate the follow-up, then there's a great likelihood that you'll feel welcome and you will have that next conversation, and you keep following up with the people who are valuable to you until the relationship blossoms.
I like that. And I want to go back to that, but first I'm going to ask Claudia, what are any kind of, tactics you use to, again, kind of warm that relationship from an initial conversation to a potential business conversation?
First of all, going a little bit back to the professional, organizations that we discussed, one of the things that I recommend is it's not enough to just go to some of the events that as much as we want you guys to come to all our events, my point is don't just go to the events, get involved, get into a committee, because the only way that you're going to really build a relationship with some of your peers in these organizations is by having more face-to-face time. And you're not going to do that by just going to a monthly event here and there. You really need to really put in the time to get to know some of these people that could be potential clients or people that you may work together or who will, recommend you to other people. In addition to that, don't underestimate face-to-face meetings. I know that right now it's so easy for us to just use Zooms, pick up the phone, but face-to-face meetings are so important because they give you more time to have that opportunity to kind of catch up, whether it's with your network or reaching out to even old customers. Don't forget about your old customers. Maybe you worked with somebody 3 years ago and you haven't worked with them yet. They haven't hired you since then. Reach back out to them. Do a one-on-one meeting. Talk to them about some of the new things that you have now brought to the table, some of the new things that you are now maybe providing that maybe you didn't back then when you worked with them. So those are some of the ways that I feel is important to making sure that you're, not out of sight, out of mind. You want to make sure that you stay basically in their mind.
Stacy, one of the things that we did that was particularly productive during COVID, and this is going to sound super cliche, but we would reach out to these individuals that both Claudia and Larry have talked about, our targets, and we would ask them, hey, give us an update of what you're seeing in the industry. We'd love to give you an update on what we're seeing. And by listening to what people were and are dealing with, we started to shift the kind of services that we were providing to the market. For example, prior to COVID, law firms would pay for partner level professionals to have coaching and training. They didn't really care about associates. They didn't care about the junior people as much. In their mind, those professionals needed to learn to be great lawyers, and at some point they'd be anointed partner, and then they'd get the benefit of working with Larry or with me or with one of our colleagues. During COVID, firms had more work than they had people for. The struggle was hanging on to their folks so that they didn't get cherry picked by another organization. So all of a sudden, we revamped our service offering from coaching and training partner level professionals to coaching and training associate level professionals so that the firms could retain them to do the work that the firm had more work than they knew what to do with. And so I don't think we should underestimate asking our prospects and asking our referral sources really pointed, engaging questions to try to understand how we can realign our expertise to meet a current need.
I love that. Have you ever, and this is to the three of you, have you ever seen a place where they could, increase their business or something by an idea that you've had or an opportunity, for instance, whether it's a speaking opportunity or a writing opportunity or something where you've seen this thing that you want to share with them and you're not on board, but maybe you're just giving them a little tidbit, maybe you're giving them a little nugget just to try to engage them and kind of show them like, hey, look what I can do for you. Has that ever worked for you all?
Well, I can respond to that. The foundation of our coaching is we tell people that they need to be a person of value. And being the easiest way to be valuable is to teach. And so speaking and teaching, like we're doing now, is the most effective way to reveal your expertise. And I would like to address something that I think is really important about the issue of building relationships. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're starting out is they're invested in the belief that your job is to make friends with the people that you want to do business with, or make friends with the people that are good referrals, could be good referral sources for you, with the understanding that after you become friends, then you can then talk about doing business together. Well, the reason that's so problematic is the biggest obstacle that most people that we work with who are beginning say they're uncomfortable asking their friends for business. So you're setting yourself up for a problem, and also building friendships takes a long time. I think that you need to be friendly, but consider yourself in the role of developing allies rather than friends. And a lot of people prefer that notion because when you think of it as building allies, it's not the same kind of manipulation that you may feel if you're trying to get your friends to give you business. So I think you need to be very clear about what the word relationship means. And yes, building a relationship is important, but I would be cautious about only really pursuing friendships that ultimately may evolve into business relationships.
Definitely.
You know what, I would like to add to that, and something, one of the main items that is super important when you have your own business and you're trying to grow is your ability to adapt and to grow and evolve with the market. Because when you find yourself in that timing where things are a little bit dry and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I need to find more clients. What am I going to do? You need to really figure, and like Jonathan said, for example, COVID affected us in many different ways. And so that's not a time when you sit there and panic. That's a time of, okay, I need to, pivot and shift. This is not working. What is going to work? What can I bring to the table? Seeing that, let's say you have a lot of clients that were doing events and now all the events are getting canceled. So what can I focus on? One of the things that I recommend is, think also of collaborations with partners that can help you to bring added services to what you provide. So for example, on our end, most of our clients need translation. We do the translation in-house. But as I saw more and more of a need, I thought, well, shoot, you know what? Let me partner with a translation company. They're going to be our translators from now on. And I'm going to be able to offer that as an additional service that can bring in additional income besides the regular services that we provide. And also, because, you think about it, it's like, okay, well, it's not that easy to find people that you can partner with, or maybe that have the right budget where you are going to be able to, to benefit from that, from what they bring to the table. Don't try to consider also international, especially for people that are individuals and you're a one-person shop and you are concerned about the people that you hire because maybe your budget is not as high. Go international. We work with a translation company out of Colombia. We work with project managers out of Peru. We work with, people that are in Norway, graphic designers out of Norway. The borders in the US at this point, because of the technology as advanced as it is, we don't have to worry about just, maintaining that workforce within the border. You can expand to wherever you want to go worldwide. And the services that we provide as PR professionals are certainly services that can be done from many different places in the world.
Well, that's a good point. I want to go back a little bit to the tactics like you all have talked about. And I know Larry and Jonathan and Claudia have always said, these initial conversations, these touch points with people are really what help build, and you follow up, and how this person to lunch and how this person to coffee. So kind of what's the line? What's too much? I want to talk about, any common mistakes that you all have seen with somebody else. Obviously, you would never do it yourself, but, any mistakes that you may have seen of people trying to make this connection and following up too much, or, when's a good place to stop? If you're not getting that feedback, or when's a good place to, put a pin in it and continue next year? What are your all thoughts? Jonathan, why don't I start with you?
Personally, I think any amount of outreach is inappropriate if you're not adding value. If someone's interested in your services and you follow up to say, Stacy, are you ready to hire me? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? any amount of that is going to get annoying. You're going to be like a gnat where someone's like, oh my God, I'm not returning your calls. I'm not going to return your emails. I don't want to be pestered. I mean, it's modern day spam, essentially, in my opinion. So I think that's why focusing on fewer individuals, but having more interactions with them during the course of the year and more meaningful interactions is where it's at. Nobody needs to know that they are one of your targets. But one interaction could be an invite to lunch. One interaction is seeing them at a conference. One interaction is responding to a post of theirs on LinkedIn. One interaction is sending them some kind of a thought leadership piece, an article, or an alert. One of them is inviting them to a PRSA event. I mean, if you vary it up and always provide value every single time, it could even be an introduction to someone you think they want to know. Then they're not going to see you as that virtual gnat that will not go away. Otherwise, I mean, I think one of the signs of a novice is someone that does reach out like clockwork and just bugs the hell out of you, but doesn't add any value. Nobody wants that.
Everybody should write that down, because that is such great advice. If you reach out to people with value, you're never a pest. Yeah. So the message should always be valuable. That's fundamental and absolutely correct. But the issue of how often should you give value could vary from calling later that afternoon. If you're meeting with somebody for breakfast and they have some issues that are open issues, and you say, well, let me do some quick research on that and I'll call you this afternoon. It could be the same day. So it's not like call everybody quarterly or call everybody monthly. It's nothing like that. It's very customized. You look at your inventory of allies and you determine who are the people that are worthy of my attention. And then if you keep reaching out to somebody in a very high personal basis where you're calling and talking and interacting and it's not producing any value to you, that doesn't mean they're no longer a target, but maybe they only get your emails now or the invitations to your webinars, and you choose someone else for the personal one-on-one. There's no more important asset than your time. Nothing is more important than your time. So in business development, selecting the people that you want to spend your time with is one of your most important skills. And so there's no structured, rigid rules. It's name by name.
Definitely.
Also, I wanted to add just one key point is really know who you're reaching out to. And remember that now we have all the social media platforms available, right? Because you don't want to be reaching out to somebody that's currently on vacation. You don't want to be reaching out to when you know that maybe this person works, let's say, at a network television station and they're in the middle of sweeps and they're focusing on that. You want to be able to reach out to them when you know that it's a good time and they're not in one of the major big events that they're working on, because they were going to want to kill you if you're constantly barraging them. So really, do your homework and I mean, it's as easy as go to LinkedIn, go to go to Facebook, but try to figure out where are these people at that moment in time before you start to reach out to them.
It's funny, as you all are talking about these tips, it's reminding me, it's the same tips that you would use to pitch a reporter or an editor. You need to go out, these are people that we contact a lot. You need to make sure that you're bringing value to the table every time that you talk to them, that your information is relevant, that it's helpful to what they're doing. And Claudia, to your point, you need to make sure it's at a time where they're going to be able to actually look at what you have to bring to the table. You can't do it when they're on deadline. Make sure they're not on vacation or a leave or something. So it's kind of funny that there is very similar parallels there.
Sometimes we feel like our outreach has to be 100% business related too. I now have a son, but before I had a kid, some of my closest contacts would reach out to me and ask for suggestions where they should send their kids to school, private school. And I'm like, why the heck are you asking me? I'm the wrong. But because you're seen as someone who's resourced, someone who's connected, someone that is always looking to provide value, those are the professionals that others seek out. I think that's the reputation that you want to try to create for your services.
Absolutely. So now that, we've kind of talked about how you just start to develop a business pipeline, how are you checking in and maintaining these relationships? Moving on, how do you balance this new business with your current client roster? Is there a system that you all use? Is there, is there any type of number, like magic number that you should have in your pipeline to make sure that you have enough people in the well and you're not thirsty versus and making sure that your current clients are happy and you're not trying to, sell yourself or run yourself ragged? Jonathan, why don't we start with you? What's your kind of system again for, quote unquote balance new business and current clients?
So I don't remember what the movie was that talked about ABC, always be closing, but I am always constantly, tirelessly networking because generally there is such a long lead time from the first time that I meet with a prospective client to the time that they actually sign my engagement letter and send me that first retainer check. It can be as much as 8 to 12 months. And so if I were to wait until things got a little sparse, turning that around right away is just not an option in the profession where most of my clients reside. And so I'm always networking, I'm always connecting. I always have about 15 professionals that in some fashion I'm hitting up 6 to 8 times a year. People will surface at different times. There are a tremendous number of, let's call them contractors, other professionals that are also consultants. I've got relationships with those folks. And over time, we've built referral relationships whereby if there's something that a client needs that I don't have the capacity to fulfill, it's easy enough for me to reach out to one of these other professionals to say, hey, kind of in an of counsel way, do you want to work with me on this project? Or can I just send my client to you all together? I'll stay in touch as much as I need to. But I think always selling and having that network of other people that you can rely on for additional capacity is about as good as it can get.
Agree. I love that. And I think you do bring value to somebody, even if you can't work with them, by introducing them to a professional that you can trust, because that's a value there too. I love that. Larry, what about you? What's that balance kind of look like for you?
Well, we don't really coach too much in life balance, because when you're starting your business or you're trying to build your career, there's not a lot of balance. It's just a lot of work all the time. But I think that the key to maintain your business development effort is to install things that you commit to over a long period of time. For example, could you plan and commit to doing 4 webinars a year? So that means there's never a webinar more than 3 months away. So you could always say to somebody when you meet them, hey, our next webinar is coming up. I'd be delighted to invite you. So you have commitments that are in your calendar. If you decide you're going to do a broadcast mailing with a blog or some, how many do you want to do? You want to do 1 a week? Will you commit to that? That, no matter what happens, no matter how busy you are, you put it in your calendar that you're going to write your blog, you're going to write your newsletter, whatever it is that you're thinking about doing. Systems that you commit to over a long period of time so that you work your life around the things that you have guaranteed yourself that you're going to do. But if you wait to market to have time, you will not market because no one has time. You are busy people. If anything, you just might want to take a nap, but trying to wait until you have free time is a fantasy. You must block out time in your calendar. And I like specifically to block out the names of the people that I want to call on my calendar in a time slot, not just in the to-dos for that day. But if I want to call Jonathan, I'm going to put him in my calendar to call on Thursday at 2 so that I can actually have the time to do it. And when you respect your calendar, the follow-up that you want to do happens. And if other meetings come in, yes, you could certainly change an appointment that you've made for yourself, but you're less likely to if you've made this commitment. If marketing to you is sacrosanct, if you realize that the sales cycle is long and you've got to market, there's a law firm in Century City, Cox Castle and Nicholson. The managing partner was Mario Camara. This might have been 20 years ago. He said, if you have time to market, it's too late.
Love it. Claudia, what about you? Anything to add on that? Just this, kind of, again, quote unquote, balance of how many clients, you have versus what should be in your new business pipeline.
I think, like Larry and like Jonathan, you don't want to wait till you really need the business before you start reaching out. So committing that time and, it could be as easy as, hey, every couple of weeks, I'm going to get together with lunch with XY person, or like they said, maybe do some type of panel, etc. But also, as far as the balance, one of the things that you want to be careful with is not going beyond your bandwidth, because what you don't want to get into the situation is being in that situation where you're not going to be able to provide quality work to your current clients. So you have to make sure that while you're seeking work, that you're going to be able to continue the quality of work that you provide to your current clients, because honestly, your current clients are your best ambassadors. But the majority of the work that I have received in the last 22 years have been by referrals. And the majority have been by referrals to current clients that I had, because I was able to, just one client last week, one of the things that she said to us, to me, I was in an event, and she said, you make me feel like we are your only client. And it's funny because it wasn't something that I had thought about, but it also was not the first time I had heard it. And the thing is, to me, when I'm working with a client, I want to make sure that they really feel that they get our full attention and our full support. And that allows them to refer us because they trust us, because they believe in the work and they see the results. So, that balance to me is take care of your clients first and work while on building something else, but don't ever let it be at the expense of your current clients. And if you're not sure, like, well, I want to continue, but what if I get a client and I'm not ready? That's where your collaborations can help. That's where you're, collaborating with other PR professionals like yourself, where you can say, hey, I may get this project, I might not have all the bandwidth, can we go at it together? Or, can you maybe not go at it together, but can you support me in XYZ? And building those relationships with collaborators that you can trust, that have your same work ethics and that have your same quality of work are critical in a business when you are an individual practitioner.
Absolutely.
Stacy, in terms of being super targeted, as Larry mentioned, I've got a real estate attorney client in St. Louis. Every Wednesday at 2 p.m., he blocks out an hour on his calendar to go to LinkedIn to see who has landed on his profile. And he's upgraded to the premium so that he can see by name who has landed on his profile. And he reviews that every week, and he sends an in-mail through LinkedIn to select professionals that have landed on his profile. And he essentially says, hey, nice to connect with you this week on LinkedIn. I see that we're both in real estate. Do you want to jump on a 10 or 15-minute Zoom call in the next week to see if there are opportunities to collaborate? He reports back to me that 30% of his deals every single year come as a result of him being that intentional and blocking out the time to make sure that it happens. It's not going to happen through hope and prayer. You have to be intentional about it, which means you have to really want it. Things that you really want get accomplished. And if you really want to grow your practice, or you really want to establish some kind of a practice from the beginning, then I don't know of an easy way of getting around it. It requires you to roll up your sleeves and to network and be super intentional.
I love that. I think that's great. That brings up an interesting point that we didn't really touch on in our prep, but I think, Jonathan, you mentioned, he's part of the upgraded LinkedIn. I know I'm not. I don't know if the three of you are, or if you've ever considered it or looked into it. Is that helpful? I mean, obviously, to see, like, if you're having a direct connection, you can see the contact information for somebody who's looking at you versus just, 5 professionals in the real estate space. Obviously, that is turning, ROI of that. I don't know if any of you are
I'm actively involved in it, and we on the premium account, and also on Sales Navigator, which is an extra service that that LinkedIn provides that allows you to communicate more effectively. It just broadens the scope of your ability to expand relationships, and it's a very meaningful part of our business. What I don't do is spend time looking at all of the things that people are sending me, because I have tens of thousands of people in my database, and I cannot be responding and studying what's going on in the lives of every individual. So, but LinkedIn has proven to be a very worthwhile experience because people see that you have mutual connections, and it increases the likelihood of their accepting an appointment to talk with you.
I think it goes back to the, I'm sorry.
I think it's the most underutilized tool that is out there across the board. For 90% of professionals, the free version is plenty. If you spend 50% or more of your time prospecting, I think it's worthy of upgrading. Usually I will upgrade a couple times a year when we're doing a full court press within the legal profession. It seems to work very well, but I don't have it 12 months out of the year. And so I think you just have to decide, are you prospecting that much? And if so, does it make sense to pay LinkedIn 80, 85, 90 bucks a month to have all of those features that Larry talked about? Or do you do it a couple times a year to get your foot in the door, and then you work on those leads in the months where you're not upgraded?
Love that. And I think it goes back to that trust that we talked about. It's building that trust in the multiple connection points. Somebody's looking at you because there's some connection there. So that's, again, the multiple connection points and building the trust. One more point I wanted to make quickly before we go to some questions is, I know we talked a little bit in our prep session about, is there any way to kind of build in this, pipeline and this kind of guaranteed work in your contracts? And I thought some interesting points came up. So, Jonathan, maybe let's start with you. How do you structure your contract relationships with some of your clients? And do you feel that that structure helps you feel more confident in your business pipeline?
It's a great question. All of our engagements are minimally 12 months in length. Unless someone reaches out to us and wants us to keynote a conference or do some programming workshops at a conference, which is kind of a one-off project, all of our client relationships are 12 months in length. We, at the outset of any kind of an engagement, we try to assess the need that the client is going to have over the course of those 12 months, and we assign a monthly retainer amount to that relationship. At the 12-month mark, if the client is super needy and we need to up that retainer amount, we can have the conversation at that point. But I think clients like predictability, and I like cash flow predictability. And to have to chase a contact every single month to see if they need me, or if they want to meet with me, or they've got something coming up, is just way too hectic. I also find that if you are on the individual's dole or the company's dole, they will take your interactions with them way more seriously. I get paid on the first day of the month that we will be providing services. If on the 15th of that month, the person doesn't show up for their coaching session, I've already been paid for it. Now I'm not struggling to try to find another hour to make up for the hour that that client just wasted of mine. Now, am I flexible in rescheduling? Of course. Do I want to have that interaction with my client? Of course. But I'm going to get paid one way or the other because I have blocked out the time and I have made the commitment, and I expect my clients to do the same.
Larry, what about you?
Our system is so completely different than Jonathan's, which is really fun. We do not have a retainer. We only bill by the coaching session or the hour. We bill at the end of the month, or we take credit cards. We will work with individuals, and the notion of getting our fee in advance just never seemed practical. We charge you after we do the session. We unconditionally guarantee your satisfaction. If you have a session that you don't like, we won't bill you. We don't even have a written agreement. All of our relationships are on a handshake, and I never have any write-offs. I only believe in, if somebody appreciates what you do, they'll pay you. And I don't like the barrier of having to ask for money before we get started. I like to get started and show them how helpful I am and then get paid after the fact. So it's fascinating. In the PR world, most of you will probably want to have retainers. I've hired many public relations firms over the years, hundreds probably through my clients, and every single one of them uses a retainer. So it's a standard billing mechanism. I personally think that offering to let's just get started and bill later is a philosophy that I have always subscribed to, and it's been very successful.
I love it. And I love the dualism too. Claudia, what about you?
For us, I mean, it's usually two different ways. One could be a project way, because many times it's an event, like we do the Billboard Latin Music Awards. So for that, it's a project fee. We charge usually 50% upfront and then 50% at the end. And then as far as retainers, we usually do a minimum of 6 months is our goal. There have been some exceptions where we have done a minimum of 3, but never less than that, because at the end of the day, as you know, in PR, it takes time to be able to build and execute, a campaign, and then also garner the results that we want to be able to make sure that they get.
Great. I'm going to take it to some questions before I ask you all if you have any closing thoughts, just because some other topics might come up. So we have a question here. What are your thoughts on doing free work or work at a drastically reduced price for clients as a first engagement, while making it clear that you will be raising prices later?
I think
discourage it. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Claudia.
I was going to say I discourage it. I discourage it because what's going to happen is a lot of people will take advantage of you, and they'll say, yeah, for sure, because after this period, we will definitely need more work. And guess what? That period will happen, and later on, they won't hire you, and they just got you for super cheap. And you work, because the reality is that the smaller the account, the more work it's going to be. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the case. So I would strongly discourage people from doing that, because it's just not going to be worth it at the end. If they really want your services, then they have to value you and what you provide.
And that doesn't mean that you're not inflexible with working with someone, but you need to be paid for the value you provide. All kinds of people, organizations, law firms, associations will reach out to me and want me to speak at a conference or speak on a webinar. And they're charging for the webinar, or they're charging members to attend the conference. So I know the organization is making money. And essentially their pitch to me is, well, Jonathan, think about all the exposure that you'll get, and I'm sure you'll get hired. And I will ask them, how sure do you think you are that I will get an engagement as a result of performing? Because I know I'm going to show up right. And they're like, oh, for sure you're going to get something. And I said, great, here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to charge you my speaking fee to speak on the panel or to keynote the conference. For any of your members that engage me as a result, because you're so secure in knowing that's going to happen, depending on how many of your members engage me, I will return my speaking fee. And all of a sudden, I've gone from preaching to meddling. But I will tell you, it works really well. I do it all the time with prospective clients. They'll essentially say to me, hey, Jonathan, will you come in and speak to our partnership? And I'll say, yeah, here's my speaking fee. And if you engage me within 12 months, I'll return the fee in the first month retainer. It's as easy as that. And I get paid for the value that I provide. I think it also sends a certain level of confidence that your time is valuable, and you're willing to be flexible and creative with the fee, but you don't work for free.
I just take a different tack on this. I think that if somebody doesn't know you and you want them to hire you, the notion of they're giving you a retainer is a high barrier that we wanted to eliminate. So we said, you know what? If you can just get started and then bill, then you're getting paid to sell, which is a phenomenal structure. And then during the time that you're doing the work, you can build the trust and build the relationships and get people more excited about your ability to do other things for them. I just don't like the high barrier of a retainer and a contract. It just feels like a whole big deal that we just avoid completely. It's fascinating.
It is. I will say that I know, just because I've been on my own for a while and personally have had to obviously raise my rates over the past, 12 years I've been doing this. And I have found, I think it's harder to raise your rates than come in at a set price. For some reason, it's an obstacle. And I think, the plus is obviously I have a value and I have this built-in trust, and I haven't really had people say no. But it's definitely I think it's a little bit of a challenge to have to raise your rates versus just coming in and being like, this is where I am.
The other thing all of this demonstrates is there's not one right way. What works for Larry may not work for me and vice versa, and that's fine.
Sure.
You have to find something that works for your practice and for your client base and whatever else you have going. But you do have to find your groove. And I think once you find it, you got to stick with it.
100%. Like Claudia said at the beginning, you need to find your niche. And that includes your pay structure and contracts and everything. I agree 100%. Let's go to another question. What are the panel's thoughts on cold calling and emailing?
I can, through the last 22 years, there were 2 times when I found myself, we really need to try to get some new clients like soon. COVID was one of them, obviously. And then there was another period. This was, I don't know, maybe 3 years after I launched. And, one of the things that I thought about is the beauty of having a boutique PR agency is that I am not big enough that I'm a danger to the large public relations agencies, but I'm not small enough that I cannot handle a national account. So what I did is, one time I actually thought, well, shoot, let me reach out to all the large PR agencies that I know have like a Hispanic, for example, arm. Let's say if it's not Hispanic, it could be that they focus on, corporate affairs or whatever my expertise is. And for me, it was Hispanic arm. And let them know that we can be a complete support to them. We can bring X, Y, Z to the table if they find themselves in the situation. And so I actually prepared a letter, sent the PowerPoint presentation, sent the link to my website, etc. And I actually got a couple of clients from that, immediately with national campaigns that really needed some outside support. So that was very helpful in that respect. And then during COVID was the same thing. Like I had said, never stay still, pivot, adapt, and look for other opportunities. So while we had a lot of events that were postponed or canceled, downright, I'm like, okay, well, what else can we bring to the table that I know that right now they really need? One of the things that we're doing is we're working a lot with influencers. And so that was something that I started to push a lot more during that period. So I think it's just, being able to adapt more than anything. And so, yes, cold calling, emailing, I don't feel I wouldn't call, frankly. I don't like to get a cold call. But sending an email, sending your information, but as long as again, do your homework, don't just email to anybody, as long as you know who you're reaching out to and what their needs may be, that is something that would be really good. That was working.
I'll weigh in here. Cold calling is a valid strategy. And while Claudia expresses a very valid point that I don't like getting cold calls from people that are reaching out to me with something I don't need, you as marketers need to be mostly concerned about what's best for you, because the client that you're calling may not know enough about what they need to be able to decide whether or not your call is beneficial to them. So the problem with cold calling is that it's really hard. It feels demeaning that people hang up on you all the time. You have to call hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people to get a good lead. So it's a mechanism that works in business. If it didn't work, people wouldn't be doing it all the time. And I do believe that calling is good because in almost all cases, you don't get to the person anyway. You leave a voicemail message, and when you leave a voicemail message, they hear your voice, and that hearing your voice is an emotional bond that is far stronger than reading your email. It's too easy to click an email and make it disappear. So I believe that you should call, leave a voicemail message, and then send a follow-up email. But the key is offering something that makes them want to talk to you. When these construction people call me and say, hey, we're going to be in your neighborhood, we'll give you a free offer, a free bid, that's not an offer. A free bid is giving them an opportunity to go fishing in my backyard. An offer is, hey, I've got this great booklet on do's and don'ts for remodeling your home. I'm happy to send it to you. Would you like me to send it to you? And offer something where the person will say, yes, I'd like to get that. But if you just say, hey, I'm in PR and I like your business, that's a waste of time. I'm in PR and I'd like to show you what we bring to the table. And as a way of establishing my credibility, I'm happy to do this for you. I see that working a lot, but it is real hard.
Got it. I know I only have a couple of minutes here, so I want to be cognizant of anyone's time. So I think I'm just going to take it back to the panelists and say, you know, are there any closing thoughts that you have for everyone, advice?
Well, let me chime in here, because it wouldn't be true to the profession if I didn't offer that you contact me. Of course, I'd be happy to chat with you about your own PR. Visit our website at kohncommunications.com and check out our app called BizDev Coach, which you can get for free. And if you put the source of PRSA, I'll give it to you for free for a year, because I really want to offer you something rather than just saying, call me. So if you're interested at all, check out the site and sign up for BizDev Coach.
Jonathan, any parting advice or thoughts for everyone?
Yeah, if you're looking to go out on your own, or you're looking to take your business to the next level, and you see other professionals doing it and it looks very easy, it probably looks easy because they've spent a lot of time refining their skill and finding their niche and their approach. It is not easy. I spend hours and hours and hours, way more time every day than I would if I was in-house, running the business and making sure clients are happy. And so if it is launching your business from the beginning that you're looking to do, I'd take the appropriate amount of time. It took me a year to get all of my ducks in a row before I decided to launch. And that's when I was able to have conversations with potential referral sources and get the website ready and decide on my niche and do all of these things with the proper amount of time, so that when I launched, I was prepared as possible. So preparation, preparation, preparation.
Thank you. Claudia, what about you? Any parting thoughts for everyone?
I think one of the most important ones that I would like to share is really try to provide something that your peers are not providing. And that's why when I say a niche, I find it so important. And I'm not saying like, you know, I mean, I tell you, well, I focus on the Hispanic market. You know, great, Claudia. I don't speak Spanish. I don't do that. But you know what? I know individual practitioners that, for example, they focus on nonprofit organizations, or they focus on entertainment. If it was me launching today, I would take a really good look at environmental PR. That is, I mean, that is growing by leaps and bounds, and every single company is doing it. So I think that, you know, you need to figure out, how does what I provide differentiate from what my peers provide, and collaborate. You know, I think there's always an opportunity to, you know, to do things together. And so don't feel like you're out there on your own. There's always people that are going to be willing to collaborate with you. And finally, I'm going to share my email. You know, I've been doing this for quite some time. I am happy to help answer questions. I love that some of you have already done so, or maybe are about to make that leap of faith. It's scary, but it's certainly worth it.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Larry, Jonathan, Claudia, and everyone for joining us today. We will be doing like a long form LinkedIn blog post highlighting some of today's kind of, you know, top level insights. So keep an eye out for that. And then also, you know, please continue to follow PRSA-LA and IPA on all your social channels. It's a really great way to hear about all the events, including, a lot of our networking events that we've heard is so very important today, to invite that business prospect to attend. So I just wanted to thank everyone, and I'm sorry, I know we didn't get to all of the questions. We got to most of them. If there's a follow-up, my information is online. Feel free to reach out to me if there's a question, and I'd be happy to try to answer it for you. So thank you all for joining us today. And thank you to our wonderful panelists.
Thanks a lot.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.